Toughness entails a lot of different things, right? When we speak of toughness, we're talking about our effort, our physicality, and our mental toughness. I think that at the end of the day, they obviously had more yards than us rushing, and so they did a good job. You got to give credit to them. I know how physical our guys are. Um, at the line of scrimmage, and we need to continue to make that what's been successful for us there. I know how tough our guys are physically, mentally, and effort-wise. But again, when a team has more rushing yards than you, it's not just hey, it's on that. It's on all of us, right? Anytime we're in a streak where we are right now, having lost 2 games in a row, we're not ever here to assign blame. We're here to find solutions, and that's what this whole weekend's about. How do we put the guys in positions to be more physical? How do the guys, how is their rest or whatever it is, from their body, how their bodies are feeling to put them in position. So always look inward first, but we know a strength of our team has been winning at the line of scrimmage. And I know I have so much confidence in these guys that, offensive line, defensive line, that we'll get back to that.
We'll go to Martin and then Rube.
Hey, Nick. You guys obviously last year you had the early bye. You spent that week kind of like figuring out certain things with the offense and everything. And I was just kind of wondering, obviously you probably used this past weekend the same way. Like what kind of things stood out most of all about like the inconsistencies you've been seeing on offense so far through the first 6 games?
Yeah, I think obviously this weekend was good for us to be able to really dive into a lot of those things. Obviously, you don't have the same amount of time that you have in a bye week, but you treat it as a mini bye week, and it's also important that there's everyone gets a chance to rest and recover, because when you're on a short week, coaches, players, everybody, you put yourself behind a little bit in all departments. So there was a little bit of rest, relaxation, and then there was a lot of trying to figure things out. And obviously not going to dive too deep into that. Of what we have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things that we want to put into action. I know Kevin kind of talked about some of those things with our offense today. But I think just when you look at it, being more efficient on first and second down. So because right now we're not near our standard on third down. Well, why is that? Well, 3rd and 7+, 8+, they're going to be harder to convert than 3rd and shorters. So a lot of that is the efficiency. We looked at that. That's in the run game and in the pass game. And coming up with solutions there. Again, you never, not in this sport, do you ever want to get into a situation where it's a blame. So it's always about finding solutions. We feel like we did some of that. Now we got to go put it to work. And I'm excited about that opportunity. This isn't like, you lose this one and then you got to, wait again to play for a year. No, we get an opportunity to go out, get better from this, continue to come together as a football team and get back to work.
We'll go to Rube and then Dave.
Hey, Nick, wondering how surprised you were that Zadarius walked away from football and what your reaction was. And, what's your confidence level in the other guys you have with Nolan still out for a couple more weeks?
Yeah, obviously, I found out this morning a little bit, obviously, before you guys did. I wish him the best, and I really enjoyed having him on this football team while he was on this football team. As far as my confidence in the guys there on that defensive line, a lot of confidence in them. A lot of guys that have played, young guy in Jalix who's continuing to get better each and every week. My confidence in him is so high. And then you got guys that have played a lot of football, and want them to, I'm excited about those guys and continuing to help them get better and within our schemes. So yeah, I feel I like that position. I like the depth that we have at that position. Just the numbers of how they play now is it'd be distributed a little bit differently. So, but I have confidence in those guys and that group that we have, and going into this next game.
If I could just follow up real quick, did you have a chance to talk to Z? And if so, did he give you any sense of why he did this now?
I'll let him answer any of those questions like that. Obviously, always keep any conversations private, but wish him the best, and really enjoyed being around him for this past month or so.
We'll go to Dave and then Jeff McClain.
Nick, I know it's not obviously all on Kevin Patullo, but where's your confidence level in him to come up with some of the answers to get the offense turned around?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's not in this sport is it ever on one person, and we're not in the business of assigning blame. We're in the business of finding solutions, and so that's what as we watched the tape today. It was a little on everything, right? And that's this game of team football. I know that we live in a world that it wants to assign blame, point the finger, but that's not reality of what good teams do. That's not reality of this sport. And got a lot of confidence in Kevin and the offensive staff. And love some of the thoughts that we have. I know you'll ask them, hey, what were some of the things you found on the bye week? They're not going to probably tell you those things either. Just, obviously it's not good for us to share that with our opponents. But a lot of confidence in there. And again, we're all about finding solutions. And that's, I saw that quote of Bill Parcells a long time ago, of finding solutions. And that's what we're in the business of.
We'll go to Jeff McClain and then Ed Kratz.
Does finding solutions during this mini bye, did that result in the decision to change offensive play calling in any way?
No.
We'll go to Ed and then Brooks.
Hi, Nick. Just ask you, Jalen Hurts is typically a very good deep ball thrower. We've seen him overthrow two passes in back-to-back games, his first interception of the season. I know everybody needs to get better, but how would you assess just Jalen's play these past couple of weeks?
Yeah, again, when the ball goes further and further down the field, you're not going to be 100% on those. And there's different reasons, again, for why a ball is missed. And again, it's never just on one person. It's just not this game. But Jalen's throwing the deep ball. We chart everything, right? Where he is in his intermediate accuracy, where he is on his deep ball accuracy. Like that's I don't know if that's a fair question, and seeing that how all these balls that he's putting in great spots that have resulted, the throw to AJ on the vertical ball early in the game, down their sideline, whether it's the deep ball to Smitty last week, or the deep ball to Jahan that didn't go our way with the review. Like, he's made so many good throws like that. And then, okay, so then there's two that you perceive that, are not where they're supposed to be. Like, that's football. Like, he's made a ton of throws. And again, there's always different reasons within it. And again, I'm not going to sit up here and say it's this or it's that of, what happened on the play. You're always going to come out of a football game wanting a playback as coaches, as players, everybody. But I think his deep ball accuracy is one of the better deep ball accuracies in the league, which is why I kind of push back on that question there, Ed.
We'll go to Brooks and then John McMullen.
Hey, Nick, you've talked about having conversations with players at all times throughout a week, just this weekend, and players like, Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts, others that have talked about this offense and getting it back in rhythm. What has this weekend been like? How productive are those conversations if you had them? with
Yeah,
players?
again, this weekend was about, you know, one to look through our, you know, everything like we would on a bye week. We feel like we've had a good process to go through on that, you know, so we were able to do some of that, not necessarily all of it. But also it was important that guys got away and had some time away as well. Won't ever get into any conversations that I have with the guys, but I always value those conversations that we have together. And that's what I believe that we have as a team that is looking for solutions and not assigning blame. And that's huge to be able to have that. And so, because when you're worried about blaming someone, then you're not going to get better yourself because you're right. And so that's the mindset that this team has, and you value that, and you value that because of the leaders that you have, like Lane, like Jalen, that they're constantly working on everything they can do to get better. And that's what we're trying to do as coaches, as players, as a team.
We have time for two more, so we'll go to John McMullen and finish with Bob Brookover.
Hi, Nick. You mentioned Lane. We know how much respect you have for him. When he kind of mentions predictable when it comes to the offense, is that something, not to assign blame, as you said, but is that something you saw, or is that something you're trying to correct, or does that hold more weight when he says it?
Well, I obviously listened to that response too, and I think that, you know, he said a lot of things there. He talked about, you know, predictability. We talk about predictability when you're behind the sticks. He also talked about execution. Again, I felt when I listened to Lane's explanation on it, you know, I felt a lot like, you know, he was thinking about anything he could do to get better, and then, you know, and that's how I felt, and that's how I took it. But you know, you never want to be predictable, obviously. And as you look at teams, it's like, how do we make this team one-dimensional so we can make them predictable in the pass game? It's usually how that goes down, and that's what we've been talking about. How are we more efficient? Kind of back to the first question. How do we be more efficient on first and second down so we don't have that predictability? Because that's what defense are trying to do. Is try to make you one-dimensional so they can play and sell out to a certain thing. And so, you know, whether that's predictability in our run game, whether it's predictability in our pass game, whether it's whatever it is, you know, it starts with run pass, you know, stuff like that. But we're constantly working on that. We're constantly thinking about things through that. Obviously, that was a big part of the discussion because our job as coaches, right, is to put them in the best positions they can be to succeed. And then, you know, obviously the player's job is to go execute. And so we all know we need to do that at a higher level, you know, offensively, defensively, coaches, players, everything.
We'll finish with Brookover here.
Hey Nick, when you guys drafted Jihad, you kind of left it open ended. Is he an edge? You didn't want to stereotype where he was an edge or a middle guy, inside guy. N'Kobe's back now. I guess he wasn't really ready to go full board last week. Can you see a scenario? I mean, I would think last year N'Kobe was one of your best 11 defensive players. Can you see that scenario where he is back in the middle and you can use Jihad in different ways?
Yeah, I think that we have a lot, you know, we have versatility obviously there, and that we have, you know, a really good linebacker room altogether. You know, we look at everything. We look at everything that we can do to help our team be as successful as we possibly can. And you know, and so, you know, again, we'll see. I'm not going to obviously talk through some of those things. Obviously, I think you guys respect that with not giving opponents any information or anything like that. But really excited about the room. Excited to get N'Kobe back in there rolling because we know you know the type of player he is. And Jihad's played really well, and Zach Bond's played really well. And Trot's done an unbelievable job on special teams. Made an unbelievable tackle in the game the other day at the 20-yard line on kickoff, and Smiles done a nice job as well. So really excited about that group and the things that they bring, both defensively and special teams wise.